Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Eustis City Hall. It is Thursday, March 18, 2021 at 6 p.m. This is a regular City Commission meeting of the Eustis City Commission. We're going to have an invocation now, or a moment of silence, and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join us, please stand. Our pledge will be led by Commissioner LeHeup-Smith. Please bow with me. Amen. Thank you. Karen?
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I'm going to officially call the meeting to order. Mr. Nybert, or Mary, is there a quorum present? Proper notice been given?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nybert, any agenda updates, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, before us we have the approval of minutes from March the 4th, 2021 regular City Commission meeting. What's the will of the Commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of the minutes of March 4th, 2021.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Commissioner LeHeup-Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Holland.
Aye. Next, we're coming down to audience to be heard. Before we open it to the public, Commissioner Leslie Campion is with us tonight. Leslie, I know you want to introduce someone to us. If you'd like to come up, please. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to introduce to you tonight our new county manager. You may have met him already, but he's with us here tonight. His name is Alan Rosen. I'll ask him to come up in just a couple minutes. I want to tell you just a little bit about him. Alan has been in local government for about 16 years. He started in Broward County. He's got a background in a lot of areas. Finance is one of his areas of expertise. He's worked all over the country. He's also worked in the private sector. The last 6 years, he's been assistant city manager in Port Orange. A nice little interesting fact about our new county manager is that he is an expert and champion in martial arts. So Alan, if you would like to come up and say a few words. But again, thank you for letting us be here.
Thank you, Leslie. Alan, welcome to the City of Eustis.
Thank you, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney. Thank you guys so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't think she was going to say the thing about the martial arts. I was joking with her when I said you could say that, but yeah, it's been here a month and a half so far. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lake County is beautiful. We spent a lot of time here. When I first moved back to Florida, I've been around the country and came back. We were living in Seminole County, but we would come over to Lake County a bunch and come to Mount Dora, Eustis, blueberry picking, just all over, and we had a great time. So we are thrilled to be a member of this community, and as you heard, I spent some time in cities as well and local government management consulting. So I look at what we do, what your city manager does, what I do, and all our colleagues as serving the citizens. It doesn't matter whether they live in unincorporated, incorporated, wherever we can work together for the betterment of the community, we'd like to do that. So happy to be here, happy to be working with Ron and everybody else.
Alan, we look forward to working with you to move Lake County forward. Thank you so much. Commission, any questions from Alan while we have him in front of us?
Bless his heart.
I just, hi.
Again, thank you for being here with us tonight, and welcome to Lake County.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nybert, anyone else?
I have a card from Brian Broomfield.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm only going to be a few minutes.
Fine, sir.
In the closing comments of the January 7th meeting, Mayor, you asked a question. First, you talked about the insurrection that had happened the day before, and then you asked a question: why can't we work together? And it, outside of political views and everything. And that's been pondering in my mind, and I just wanted to make a comment on it. Tonight, I want to talk about. Take just a couple minutes to talk about the right to vote. Let's start with the last election. This election was the most closely watched, fairly run. court-tested and state-confirmed election in the history of this nation. Joe Biden won and Donald Trump lost. That is the truth. And we have to acknowledge truth. Now, Florida, along with over 40 other states, is proposing new laws that will make it more difficult for citizens to vote. New legislation cleared Senate committees last Wednesday over opposition from election supervisors and advocacy groups that would prohibit drop boxes and put in place new hurdles for vote by mail. The measure is among hundreds of bills across the nation that Republican state lawmakers are trying to impose and get passed. Both Democratic and Republican supervisors of election in the state oppose this legislation. Lake County election supervisor Alan Hayes, a former Republican state senator, told State Government Oversight and Accountability Panel that Senator Baxley's legislation would upend Florida's election system that performed smoothly last fall. You, and this is a quote from him, said, "You have just played havoc on the lives of 1.5 million Floridians, not to mention the burden that you've added to the lives of supervisors of elections." And he asked, is that their real intention? Well, black Americans have been fighting for this basic right for far too long. In November 1920, July Perry was murdered by a mob of Klansmen in Ocoee. Harriet T. and Harry Moore were blown up by a bomb planted under their home in 1951. Numerous civil rights leaders and volunteers in the 50s and 60s died so I can vote. Today, still the fight continues because 21st century election laws still put a burden on black voters and minority people, for the most part, minority voters. And they do it by decisions like gutting the Voting Rights Act. They did that in 2013. Florida overwhelmingly passed a law to allow certain convicted felons to have their rights restored. That was done in 2018. They tried to put, different things in place to do that. Florida voters are just, we had the best election ever. And, I'm satisfied with the people that were put in place because whether I voted for them or not, I'm going to support the best I can. But, we need to first acknowledge the truth about voter suppression in this nation, in this whole nation. And I'm saying it to you guys because local politics is national politics. And, we just have to call it like it is. No matter how it's being served, voter suppression is voter suppression. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
That's all I have.
All you have?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else that would like to address the commission about something that's not on the agenda? Darius? Darius, anything? Come on. If you would just give your name, Darius.
Darius Carson. April 24th at Missoula Grand Hall, we will have our Keep Your Distance Clean Comedy Show. It's been a while since all the pandemic, so we figured we'll bring a little laughter to the whole community safely. Tickets right now, they're $20, but if you go online to Keep Your Distance, eventbrite.com, you can use a promo code Clean Comedy, and you can get a discount on your tickets. Thank everybody for all coming out over the past years, and we look forward to seeing everybody.
Darius, thank you so much. Anyone else that'd like to address the commission tonight? Not seeing any, we'll go ahead with our agenda. Next, we have our consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody wants to pull off for discussion? Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second?
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Commissioner LeHeup-Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Holland.
Aye. Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir. The next 9 ordinances, Ordinance 20-32 through 2040, staff is recommending approval. The city is scheduled to meet with the county commission at the end of this month to discuss a potential resolution to this ongoing matter. Would any members of the public like to speak on the recommendation for continuance concerning ordinances 2032 through 2040? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Looking for a motion to continuance of these ordinances.
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am.
We need to do it to date certain, and we
Oh,
would
to date
recommend
certain.
April 1st.
April 1st. To date certain, April 1st.
Okay. So we've got a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we'll give it to Ms. Emily for a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Commissioner LeHeup-Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb,
Nay.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Holland.
Aye. Would
Ordinance.
you like to give an update, would you like to give an update about where we are with the county? And
I was going to do that under item 6.4, but I can,
let's go ahead and do it in case any of these folks want to
Okay.
leave. They can at
Sure.
least hear what we've got going on, okay?
yeah, Mr. Rosen and I have worked out a date of March 31st, 5 PM, to be at the community center. Have we gotten a commitment from the mediator?
No, but I think we both found somebody that we could work and
Okay.
work on that.
So we have a proposed date. Obviously, we forward you the documents in terms of the negotiating positions from the parties, and the mediator is going to set up a meeting with representatives of the city. We'll submit position papers to the mediator, and we'll have our discussion on March 31st.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that, Mr. Attorney. Back to you.
Yes, sir. This is the second and final reading of Ordinance 2102, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Lake County, Florida, changing the design district designation of approximately 3.9 acres of real property on the south side of East Orange Avenue between Abrams Road and Fruitwood Avenue from a mixture of suburban corridor and suburban neighborhood to suburban corridor. Would any members of the public like to speak on Ordinance 2102? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Commissioners, before us, we have ordinance 21-02. What's the will of our commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of ordinance number 21-02.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second it.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Commissioner LeHeup-Smith, Commissioner Cobb,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Holland.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
You're welcome.
Mr. Nyberg.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been considering, Commission directed the mayor and I to meet with Commission Chair Parks to discuss negotiations on potential purchase of the Lake County Fairgrounds. I've submitted documents to you indicating a map, indicating the property appraiser's record on that property, and notes from walkthrough inspection conducted by our building official, Mr. Guy Priest. As you indicated on the property record cards, the value of the buildings is approximately $700,000. The total value of the property is in the $1.3 million range, including the land value. We had previous discussions about, given the history of the property and the donation of the city to the fair, or the county in this case, of the property, possibly asking the county to include that as part of a, quote, donation back, and we would only discuss purchase of the improvements on the property. I'll answer any questions before you have discussion.
Any questions of Mr. Nyberg at this time?
No questions. I mean, I'm sure everybody read this. We've got
I'll let you open it up. Go ahead.
lots of dollars.
Yep.
Of critical note on there is the issue with, you saw the floodplain map on there. Obviously, any new improvements on property within the floodplain would require special construction consideration. The existing big building has a portion of that property within the floodplain, and according to Mr. Priest's notes, makes that a non-conforming use and would require total compliance with any significant upgrades or improvements to that building. Now, there is an option. We could possibly have the floodplain line surveyed and possibly get a removal of that from a floodplain, depending on surveys and inspections of the property by a licensed surveyor, and have that reviewed by the state to see if we can remove all or portions of that property from the floodplain.
I will say this, that this is the 100th year of the Lake County Fair, and while I have not been around 100 years, I have seen it get wet there, but I have never seen it flood in all my time there. I'm sure there are many folks, but I've looked at a lot of pictures lately in regards to the 100th year and looking back at the fair, and I will tell you that I've just never heard from anybody on the boards from all these years with me being involved with the fair that it has flooded. And I guess Florida theoretically is all in the 100-year floodplain if we theoretically want to look at it that way, but I understand what you're saying. But I actually had a piece of property that got put into a floodplain area by mistake, I guess, I'm not sure, but it was corrected, so that can be done.
Karen, any other concerns that you have, ma'am? Okay. Miss Emily?
Well, we gave it to them, maybe they could give it back to us. Just a suggestion.
Yeah. Don't think that'll go over, but okay.
I know, I'm just saying. But, yeah, a lot of thought should be put into, that's a lot of dollars.
Willie?
I agree. I think that we really need to think it through. I'd like the option of getting the new survey, if we were to move forward.
Ann? So what would we like to instruct our staff to do at this point? Do we want to have them do a floodplain survey? And let's see if it's an option we want to move forward with, or where do we go?
Even if it's out of the floodplain, if we have to do substantial improvement, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we have to do substantial improvement to any of the buildings, then the whole building will have to come up to current code?
Correct.
Or you could just rent them out like they are now, correct?
If they're safe.
Yes.
I mean.
Well, it's safe enough now.
I think if we upgrade, say we upgrade the electric or the HVAC, I don't believe that would require compliance. I think if we're making structural expansions to the facility, or maybe remodeling or divisions within the confines of the structures, would impose some of those regulations. Am I correct there, Derek?
That sounds right. Lori, can you speak to that? There might be a percent, yeah, there might be a percentage threshold. I don't recall exactly what it is in terms of the extent of the remodel.
Mayor, Commissioners, it's 50%. The Florida Building Code states that a substantial improvement is one that constitutes 50% of the fair market value of the structure. So any improvement that were made, if it exceeds that 50%, the entire building needs to be brought up to current codes, and that would apply to Florida Building Code, ADA standards, fire prevention code as well.
And code.
Yes,
Because,
ma'am.
They talked about the one structure probably doesn't meet the 140 mile per hour wind load. I just think we really need to think about it. This is something we really need to do.
Commissioner Campion, and I don't know if you can remember or not, probably I'm going to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the current where we have the where the livestock show is held, didn't the county came in, because just, and I don't know if this commission knows, But the county originally built the one main building, and then the Fair Board has built the rest, okay? But the county did come back in for the one where the livestock is currently held now, and wasn't that completely redone?
I think it was a brand new building.
Yeah, it's brand new. So when I saw the thing, it said fair on it, and I understand the stuff's old, and I get it, but that livestock building is not fair. That building's not that old. Yeah, so they redid the skins, they redid the purlings, because it was like 5 hours before the fair, and we had to put sod down. So it was cutting it pretty close, so, but I do know that building I thought was completely redone.
So the oldest building is at the main building, the first building you go in, the exhibition hall. Which is the oldest building?
The Lehman Building, the Expo Hall. I'm pretty
I
sure.
think it's the oldest.
Yeah, I think things were built in 69.
Yeah, because the original, where the fair office, where the main office is now, originally, Chamber of Commerce used to be in there back in the day. I want to say, yes, ma'am, back in, I think, the 70s. But there wasn't a whole lot of other things built. And some of the pictures I've seen recently, those buildings aren't even there anymore. So it's gone through some changes out there, a lot of changes.
The only air-conditioned portion are the offices.
Just the office, that's right. There is one little office, a tiny little office in the Ashford building that they have when security is there for the fair and that kind of thing, but it's very tiny.
It seems the garden where they used to have the flower show.
That's the Ashford building.
Okay, that's not air-conditioned?
No, ma'am.
Well, I could handle things a whole lot better back then, I guess.
I tried to get temporary for the fair this year because I'm in that building this year. I'm the superintendent, and it just didn't lend itself to work itself out. But there is a tiny bit of AC, but it's just extremely small office. So.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we were to purchase it, would we not have to put some renovations in there? I mean, what purpose would it serve us as it
Well,
is?
that's when we met out there, obviously, I had Lori and Rick and the buildings department, and I had Aaron Bailey out there. Obviously, we're looking at programmatic things, and I turned Aaron loose and said, start telling us what you think you could do out there, and then we can make decisions based on what Aaron wants to do, and we know Aaron has a great imagination and creativity on things to do out there, and obviously the scope and range of events and activities are obviously going to determine the cost and effort needed to bring those facilities up to that. So obviously the buildings in their current conditions could obviously support the fair continuing, obviously depending
Until
on
they get that built.
until they decide to make their move to Tavares. Obviously, the flea markets that are out there, there's outdoor events that could still be held there. So there could be some indoor events in the facility, obviously, if we make some investment into some HVAC, into some of that. But at this point, Erin hasn't completed her work. She's busy on some other things. So these scope and range of costs is obviously going to depend on the scope and range of activities we want to conduct out there.
I will tell you that obviously you cannot do it all at one time. It's too big of a, bite to bite off. But in my personal opinion, I think the quickest fix for a building would probably be the Ashford building with the old flower garden building.
Mm-hmm.
That would be because that's not including the workspace and the little backspace that they have. Just the area that I'm going to use is probably 5,000 square feet. So that thing's probably 7,500 feet, I would think, less, but 10,000 maybe, 7,500 square feet. And so that would be the quickest fix, if you will, if you wanted something indoors. The big building, obviously, that's another ballgame.
And Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure that working with the county manager, you can get, it's all public records, but we're happy to give it to you, our financials on operating and renting out the building, because it's one thing that every year when we go through budget, they always point out to us the fact that we're in the black on this one. We have, we cover our costs. That building is rented out all the time, the way it is now.
Yes,
So just
ma'am.
something to keep in mind.
Okay.
Because currently, they have the gun show probably at least twice a year. And I know Romac has a big event out there every
There
year.
are big events, but there are lots of little events, private You know, they have parties and Sweet 16 parties and lots of things like that. So.
We get the noise problems with that. We get the noise calls.
I've only been on the commission a couple of months, but one of the things that I've heard people say time and time again is Eustis has given away and given away and given away. And this is our opportunity to kind of recoup, and I think we need to do it. Now, if not 5 years, 10 years from now, people will be complaining about us. So I think we need to do the right thing.
I think what I would like to see done, if we could, if Ron, if you could request the paperwork from Alan, let's see what financially the budget that they've got right now with the county. By then, hopefully, we'll have a list from Erin of what she could do out there. And then if we could take a look and really take a deeper dive into what we think the buildings would cost us to renovate them, to make them what they could be. Because that big building, it is the biggest, it is the largest building in northeast Lake County for gatherings. And we truthfully need something. And I venture to say it would be rented out all the time. And with lake receptions no longer being what it once was, I think we could be at the edge of really having something. But, you know, I'm not going to put the city into debt trying to make something that's not out there. But I think you're right, Willie, too, because I hear it all the time. We have given away and we've given away, and we just don't seem to recoup anything anymore. And my greatest fear is that that property be turned into a mobile home park. And then what do we get tax-wise off of that? You know, we could at least bring revenue into the city if we're renting those buildings out in a full manner. So are we okay with what I've just stated for Ron and staff to start working on? Karen?
I'm going to say
No, that's fine. Emily?
I think it's important to get all the information we possibly can to compile it before we make any decisions.
Perfect. Okay.
Could you think we could also get, do you think Cole could maybe give us a list of the events, the people that have, besides just the budget, information on who is, especially consistent renters, you know?
I think all of that is, I mean, all of it is probably.
It'll all be on there.
I'm
Okay.
sure that you've got it put together.
Thank you.
I mean, it's an important part of the due diligence.
Absolutely.
You know, what you could do with it just as it is versus if, you know, and
Sure.
that's not to say, I can't speak obviously for the commission of where this would go if an offer was made, but only to say if you do your information gathering, that would be a really important piece of it.
Alan, did you have something?
No, I'm just literally writing an email for the request right now to send it off.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And I say we move forward as you proposed.
Okay.
Would the commission also like to pursue the floodplain survey at the same time? Rick, what would that cost us?
You're probably looking at between 5 and 10
Okay.
May I make a suggestion? And I might be, the last time it happened to me, I actually got a hold of somebody at the tax collector's office, and they sent me over to somebody in another little office, a county office, and it got changed because it was a and I'm not saying this is a mistake, but maybe that's something that they can relook at?
Well, these come from the official FEMA floodplain maps, so.
No, ours was in the FEMA floodplain map, and it was wrong.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
We can double check that.
Because it took maybe 3 weeks for it to get fixed. So I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is maybe we could use that option instead of spending $5,000 or $10,000.
Well, we can certify the accuracy of the map, and then we can make a decision at a future meeting on if you want to proceed with that.
Let's proceed with what we just laid out.
Yes, sir.
And see what we can do there. Okay? Anybody else have anything else on this matter? Nope. All right, we'll move down to the fence regulations review. Laura, you handling that for us tonight? Thank you, ma'am. Leslie, Alan, thank you both for being here. I see you gathering your stuff, so thank you all. Lose your pointer?
Commissioners, Lori Barnes, Development Services Director, providing an overview of the city's fence regulations and the land development regulations. Commissioner Cobb requested a review of the fence regulations. We'll briefly cover the history of our fence regulations, the current regulations approved by the City Commission in 2016, the city's public information brochure, and our administrative policy and permitting process. The last time this presentation was given was in December of 2019. At that time, the City Commission did not opt to move forward with any amendments to the fencing regulations. Over the years, the city's fence regulations have been revised, have been improved, have been completely changed. In 1959, 4-foot maximum on the street in the front, but in the side you could have a 5-foot fence. The 6-foot fence in the rear has remained pretty consistent. In 1992, the side height was revised to 6-foot max, and the provision to allow an additional 2 feet of fencing in the rear of a property, provided it was open or lattice-type construction, was approved. In 1995, the regulations clarified that a corner lot with a secondary street yard was to be treated the same as a street frontage with a maximum 4-foot fence. Again, the open and lattice work construction in the rear remained consistent. Barbed wire was addressed in the 1995 code, allowing barbed wire fences in agricultural and conservation, and limiting heavy commercial and industrial properties to 3 strands of barbed wire fencing atop existing fences. 2001, 2007 rendered no changes, and in 2009 there were some minor changes that were not significant enough to note. In 2012, the regulations stated that street-facing property lines could have a 4-foot maximum fence height if they were solid, opaque, and 6 foot on the sides. In 2015, the 3 strands of barbed wire atop fences changed the language to address 6-foot fences or higher, and also eliminated the word heavy from the definition because we no longer had a heavy commercial zoning district. In 2016, the regulations were clarified and some additional allowances were provided so that people who lived on corner lots could have some additional privacy and not be limited to a 4-foot fence in their secondary street yard. The regulations were changed to allow that additional 2 foot of lattice atop a 4-foot fence. And the rear property lines remain the 6-foot opaque, topped with 2-foot lattice for an overall height of 8 feet. At that point, the regulations were again changed regarding barbed wire, and the barbed wire fencing was limited to agricultural and conservation only. So the regulations approved by the City Commission in 2016 are the regulations that are currently being enforced. Fences can be of any material: wood, vinyl, PVC, chain link, wrought iron, metal, brick, concrete, etc. We do require that wooden posts have to be pressure treated, and fences are permitted and addressed in a graphic in the land development regulations to make clear the differences between the front yard, secondary street yard, rear, and the differences in height if your fences are opaque. So these graphics that you see on the screen are actually embedded in our land development regulations so that anyone can get a visual picture of the textual application of the regulations. This is a view of a 6-foot fence on a secondary street yard without the 4-foot topped with 2-foot lattice requirement. We do have a number of fences in the city that are pre-existing non-conforming, and this is the look that you see on those corner lots and double frontage lots where a 6-foot fence is placed. This view depicts a fence that complies with the 4-foot topped with 2-foot lattice for a secondary side street in our current regulations. We have additional regulations that address providing that there is a clear sight zone on corner lots. Any fencing within the visibility triangle must be opaque above a height of 4 feet so that there is no vehicular traffic concerns. Smooth sides of fences have to face the public right-of-way or private road unless they're a split rail fence or, of course, a chain link fence. Fences installed by public agencies are not necessarily subject to the height limitations. Fences and hedges can't be constructed to interfere with drainage on a site. If fences are in a public easement, we require them to obtain a right-of-way permit from the Public Works Department, which clearly states that if the public utility needs to enter into that easement to maintain roads or utility lines, they may remove the fencing and they are not required to replace the fencing. Barbed wire, again, is still restricted to agricultural and conservation districts, but the section does not apply to fences erected by a public body for public safety reasons. Development Services prepared a fencing brochure. It is a bifold brochure that's available in the Building Department and the Development Services Department. We also have a web layout that we can email to people when they inquire about fencing regulations. It's a more aesthetically pleasing view of our regulations, and it also includes sample site plans so that the expectation of what they should submit when they apply for a permit is right in front of them. Fence permit fees were recently reduced in 2017 to minimize the costs for smaller fencing projects. Your project under $1,000 is $25, between $1,000 and $2,000 is $40, and $2,000 and up is our base building permit fee of $60 plus $7 per thousand of construction. We also have an administrative policy that allows repair and minor replacement of panels without requiring a permit. Our fence permit application form is fillable. It also includes an overview of the fencing regulations and specifies when an individual can pull permit as an owner builder versus a contractor. Again, these sample site plans, so the expectation for submittal is conveyed to the property owners. Staff is not at this time recommending any changes to the fencing regulations, but we look to hear from commission if there is consensus and direction to staff to move forward with any amendments.
Thank you, Lori. Nan, you asked for this, so I'm going to let you open it up.
Yes, sir. I guess one of the biggest, issues or questions or concerns that I have is that number one, it mentioned barbed wire 2 or 3 times in there. Now, barbed wire, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, you're assuming that the wooden post with barbed wire, correct?
Wooden posts with barbed wire would be limited to the agricultural and conservation districts.
Okay, and my biggest issue with it is myself out at our business Mark Trunow or anybody that has a with a chain link fence with the 3 barbed wire on the top, if it blows down tomorrow, we can't put that barbed wire back up, but the city is allowed. I think that's a double standard. I just don't think that's right. And the city has property all over, and I understand for a public safety issue, but I can promise you it's a public safety issue when you come over my fence. Okay? That's to keep honest people honest. Okay? I don't like the double standard. I don't. And the other issue and I talked to Ms. Barnes, one of the biggest things is I know we can't dictate pretty or ugly, but one of the biggest concerns I had on the visual of that was the one on Center Street is, just in my opinion, is horrific. And then the other one was on Lakeshore, as you're going right on the line going to DeVary's, it looks like a pallet fence. And it was my fault for assuming that when I saw the brochure, which the brochure looks really nice, okay? I like the wood, the lattice, it looks real nice, but looking at that, I was just shocked when I saw those 2 fences. Okay? You talk about aesthetics, they're horrible, those 2 fences. I know, they don't look well. But I guess my biggest thing is I feel we should be able to allow the 3 strands of barbed wire. I just think that's a double standard if we're not.
And Lori, that is correct. If something happened at Nan's business, a car took out the fence, a storm took out the fence, she would not be allowed to replace that. Is that correct?
There is a provision in the code for nonconformancies. If there is a structure, which fences are considered accessory structures, that is damaged or destroyed due to no fault of the owner, they can request a variance from the City Commission. Not a traditional variance that would require meeting the strict criteria for a variance. The only showing is that it was damaged or destroyed due to no fault of the owner. And then the commission would have discretion as to whether the replacement would be allowed.
Question, Lori. If they have 3 strands of barbed wire out and say one of the strands break, are they allowed to make minor repairs to the existing barbed wire that's in place?
Minor repairs to fencing are permitted without permitting.
So let me ask you a question. So the fence out where Lake Door is, that barbed wire up there, a lot of it is rusted. Is he allowed to remove all of that barbed wire and put new up?
I'm not familiar with that fence.
It's just like ours. It's chain link and then 3 strands.
Right. I would look at it on a case-by-case basis. For example, the wooden fences that are 6 foot and on corners and non-compliant, they can replace 50% of one run of fencing before a permit and compliance with the current regulations is enforced. So if you're looking at an entire fence with barbed wire, if 50% or less of one run is in disrepair and they wanted to replace that, they could do so without a permit.
And meeting the current code?
I think it's a lot of unnecessary stuff. I do. I mean, if the city is doing it, I just don't like the double standard. That's where I stand.
And I think that's the problem I'm having right now. If we're allowed to do it as a government, and then we turn around and tell our citizens that they can't do something, I have a real problem with it, because you're trying to protect probably $1 million worth of equipment that sits on your property.
At any given time.
And we're doing the same thing as a city. We're trying to protect our equipment and our property as well. So I have a problem with double standard. If government's allowed to do something, our citizens should be allowed to do something. I think that's where I'm on the same page with you. So, anybody else have the input on this?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I happened to write it down, although Nan stated, I find the 10 fence, I've never seen that before, and the new one that's on Lake Shore to be far more offensive visually than barbed wire. And so I just wonder, and as I heard Lori describing the different types of materials that fences can be made of, I didn't hear 10. And so Is it metal? Or it looks
They
like
consider it metal, but it
yeah,
is tin.
But it looks like tin. But anyway, so how does that fit in? When they come in, do they show this and it's okay for them to do this? Because I could see different types of materials going up. They already have 2 examples of it.
I have to tell you, the homeowner loves her tin fence. She loves her tin fence.
And she loves her barbed wire.
And you know,
No, I don't love it. No, trust me, I'm not in love with it.
you know, I think we're starting to walk a fine line. You know, getting into what you know one person likes and another person
That's
doesn't.
right.
You know,
Oh, I get it.
so the fence on center, I'm fine with. That's what she wants. That's what she likes. I wouldn't want anyone coming to me and telling me what to do with my property.
I guess it needs the qualifications of the height and all that. That's all that's necessary.
Yeah. So
For me, Willie.
and I understand what Nan's saying as well.
Yeah, for me, it was just, I saw the brochure and it looked so nice, and I saw that, and wait a minute, that doesn't look like anything
It's
on
like the
brochure.
hamburger on the commercials.
Yeah, exactly. So that cured that situation for me. But my biggest thing is we can do it, but nobody else can't. I don't like the double standard. That's me.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm not.
What is your property zone, or not zone? We don't have zoning.
It's commercial. Even though we're an agriculture business, and Mark's would be commercial.
Go ahead, Lori.
Mayor, just briefly, the fencing materials are broad. The city has not placed strict standards on the construction materials and the beauty of fencing. It's been more concerned with locational criteria and height. The city is not a homeowners association. The city does not regulate the color someone can paint their house. Similarly, fencing, we do not regulate the materials. A thought came to mind, if the commission wanted to place some additional restrictions on the corrugated metal or tin fencing, perhaps requiring them to be coated and not left as a shiny surface might be an approach the commission would be interested in.
I don't think we need to get into
It's too much
legislative
government.
rules.
It's too much government.
We've got a room full of people that could be affected by annexation.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't want to be annexed into cities because we legislate stuff like that.
Yeah.
We need to stay away from it. I do care when it comes to businesses trying to protect their equipment and their merchandise. That's where I have a problem. And if,
Pardon me.
no, go ahead.
I sincerely apologize. I did not.
You're fine.
I don't want to see barbed wire fence going down Grove Street. And I don't want to see barbed wire fence around the fairgrounds, maybe. Or there is barbed wire fence there. But I'm thinking, when you're talking about commercial property, how do you differentiate between an industrial park as opposed to
I think that's one of the things we have to look at.
we have a lawnmower store right here in town. What if he wants to put barbed wire around his store?
And he may have it, because I know there's a lot of chain link fence around the back of that store.
And my issue is not complete barbed wire. My issue is 3 strands on the top. That's my issue with it. If the city can, that's just a double standard, okay? That is a double standard.
No, you're fine. That's what the discussion's
I did not
about.
mean to interrupt.
No, that's what it's
I apologize.
Would you like for us to develop some middle ground criteria, maybe certain types of businesses of certain sizes in certain corridors? Certainly those that have exterior storage of goods and equipment would certainly be good candidates for that because of their exposure of their external stuff. So if we can obviously make it full on any commercial property in any of our commercial or industrial land use districts are allowed that if they have a chain link fence, or we can seek some middle ground based on some criteria based on the type of use on the property.
Why was it taken away to begin with?
I can't answer that.
19.
I don't know. I just wondered what the,
It's my understanding that the city was seeing the aesthetic impact of barbed wire on properties in the city limits, and the feeling was the barbed wire conveyed a keep out message or it's not safe here message, and minimizing that visual appearance was the goal at the time.
it is to keep people out.
Yes, ma'am. Along the corridors, along Bay Street, along Grove Street, along the entrances to the city, along street frontages, and with that barbed wire, the visual appearance, the thinking at the time was that it didn't send the message that the city wanted to be sending.
And how many complaints have we had about 3 strands of barbed wire on the top?
None, because there's none out there. No, I'm just
That's what I'm saying. So then what difference does it
Yeah,
make?
so.
But, then, I've never had anybody come to me and go, oh, my God. I just,
I would have a problem if we had that going down 19.
sure,
But
we don't.
I don't see that.
Because we don't know.
I would like to see staff bring us something back, take a look at it, see what we can do, because this is just my belief. If government can do it, the people should be allowed to do it. That's just my belief. If contractor has to take it down, unless it's specifically written in federal or state law, and there are some I know that we have to protect with it, we need to take everything down that's on city property. So I'd like to see something brought back that equalizes the playing field, unless the federal government or state government's telling us something different.
See, the thing that concerns me is, we have to worry about the police department, the fire department,
And I think waterways.
Water and wastewater.
And those
It's
are
to keep
federally and
people
state
out.
controlled.
Yeah.
So, could staff bring us something back? to
Is
look
there a
at?
consensus that we obviously don't like where it's at now? There's concern about maybe going too far, so would you consider a middle ground staff proposal?
I'd like to hear middle ground.
Sure.
Middle
Okay.
ground.
Always open to compromise.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right.
So much of it is in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely. And we're not going to ever be able to legislate the looks of stuff like that, because you're going to get 5 different opinions.
No,
sitting
and
right
like
up
I said,
here.
when the brochure is really nice, and so when you go under an assumption, and that was my fault, and it's a great flyer, and then when I saw those 2, it was just, I was a little taken back.
Gotcha. All right, we'll come down to our next topic, is textile recycling. Lori, you good luck to have this one also, don't you?
Mayor, Commissioners, Lori Barnes, Development Services Director, presenting a consideration to the City Commission regarding textile recycling, also to be referred to as clothing donation bin regulation. This is another item requested to be brought forward by Commissioner Cobb. She was interested in adopting regulations to control the look of these clothing donation bins throughout the city, as far as color, size, condition, placement, etc. City staff looked at 2 different options. One would be to amend Chapter 42 of the Code of Ordinances to establish a textile recycling franchise. The other would be to amend the land development regulations in Chapter 110 to address the clothing donation bins as an accessory use. In regulating clothing donation bins, there are some limitations. There's been several Supreme Court cases where charitable donation has been deemed protected speech, and the results of those Supreme Court cases have directed local governments to carefully craft any regulations regarding charitable donation bins by avoiding content-based ordinances and narrowly tailoring those ordinances. Lake County, Tavares, and Mineola all have clothing donation bin regulations. They are treated as accessory structures under those, the county and the city codes. Those ordinances limit the donation bin placement by nonprofits in Lake County and Tavares. Mineola allows nonprofits and also professional solicitors licensed by the state of Florida. All of those ordinances address location, size, placement, and color. They also require the issuance of a temporary use permit by their zoning departments or their development services departments. The town of Davie in 2014 established an ordinance for franchising textile recycling in their city. In the commission's packet, we provided samples of the ordinances and then also the town of Davie's franchise agreement specifications. The city of Eustis has approximately 30 clothing donation bins and 4 to 5 entities placing those donation bins. The city staff feels that addressing the clothing donation bins via a franchise agreement will provide for a consistent look and feel. It will minimize the burden on the staff as far as engaging with 4 or 5 different providers and bringing 30-plus sites into compliance with an ordinance approved by the City Commission. Other benefits of the franchise agreement would be that the city would receive revenues through the franchise fees. Any interested nonprofit or business that wanted to place a donation bin container would order one through our franchisee, just like they order a dumpster from Waste Management. The city attorney has reviewed the franchise agreement option through the town of Davie's codes, and he's found that there's no case law or challenges to the franchise agreement. So staff would recommend moving forward with that approach if there's consensus on the commission to bring an ordinance back specifying the details, which will be based upon the town of Davie's regulations, but tailored to Eustis.
Nan, you brought this one forward. I'll let you start us off again.
Thank you very much. Yes, this actually kind of grew into the cleanup, if you will, and so as we drove around looking at the square mileage of Eustis, I lost track of 30 plus of these bins, if you will. I spoke with Ms. Barnes this morning actually to get a little more clarification, and I do like the option of the one from Davie, and then we can specifically break it down as to what we want. I will tell you, I did a lot of research on this not-for-profit. Yeah, they're for-profit, and I'll just leave that right there. It's a for-profit company. What they do is they put on the outside who their donor, who they give to. I did a lot of research, and I couldn't, and by the way, I couldn't find anywhere where they gave money back to Lake County. None of the money stayed here. So that even kind of solidified the thing more for me. So, but thank you very much, Lori, for doing a lot of the research. Thank you, Derek. But I do like that option from Davie, and then we can tailor it to how we see fit.
Willie?
Yeah, I like that option as well. I didn't notice it, and I've lived here for 20 years until Nan brought it up. And I think we should look at the Davy option as well. I like that.
Karen,
In agreement.
in agreement? Miss Emily?
I'm in agreement. That's what my question was that if you read the labels on there, they're not nonprofit, and it tells you so. And then there's so much junk around it in some of those. They're just throwing the things out, or it rains and everything's out there, and there's a cleanup that occurs. So I really like the franchise part of it.
I have to agree. I think that a lot of these things turn into trash bins. That's what they turn into. And they're unsightly. And I think, we as a commission and previous commissions, we put a lot of money into buildings being able to be restored with taxpayer money. And we're trying to make our corridors and things look better, and this doesn't help. We have some great organizations right here in town that are not-for-profit that are helping our own people that this stuff could be donated to. And that's what I would like to see done.
And go ahead, Vice Mayor. Go ahead.
As a result, their bins are removed, and they don't get the benefit of any donations because it's all going into those.
Yes.
And I'd rather see the local organizations benefit from it rather than those that are going away.
And I will say that what prompted me with all this is because, we have probably 10 people with business tax receipts here. So we have 10 businesses that, whether they pay taxes here with, their building and such, or their landlord does and they pay rent, I would like to see, that's what led me to go, we have businesses right here, like Emily said, that can benefit from that. And I do know this, when they had, hand in hand, had the donation thing right now where the Star Fitness is, they have things that they put out for a certain amount of time, and after a while, when it does not sell, they call the textile people and they come pick it up and they pay them for that. So, and they're just dropping these things everywhere without permission. And so they are benefiting from it. They can, but I'd like to see like Emily said, I'd like to see our businesses, profit. I mean, they pay taxes here.
I agree with you all, and we'd like to see the Davy model brought back to us.
Yeah, and we currently, just everybody knows, we currently have no regulation on any of this at all right now.
How hard is it going to be to get it all in check?
Sir?
How hard is it going to be to get everything back in check?
Obviously, we would pass the ordinance. The ordinance would have the new regulations in place. It would obviously require a specific period of time for the properties that don't meet the new guidelines to remove or correct the now non-conforming boxes, and then begin the process of seeking out the franchise agreement. So it could be several months.
Okay. This may be a question for Nan, since she's done a lot of the investigating. Do the business owners, the commercial properties where these bins are located, do they know that they're there?
You know what? I don't know. I would see, since we have no regulations, they could be just dumping them. I can tell you right now, we have a piece on city property right now that they didn't get permission from Mr. Nyber. They just dumped it. And since we have no regulations, I'm just going, I can't help but wonder that they just dropped them off. I don't know.
And because
But we don't have regulations, so that's why they're everywhere.
So I have consensus of the commission to follow the Davy model and bring something back for us to vote on.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Next
you,
one,
Lori.
discussion regarding Thrill Hill joint meeting with Lake County. Do we have any more to talk about on that?
Yeah, obviously, there were some other options, and I think the commission, before you move forward, needs to be apprised of all the circumstances, depending on routes that you may wish to take. Obviously, the one route we could take is to negotiate with Lake County. We've been working with them to set up a negotiating and mediated meeting between the two elected bodies. Some items for your consideration is obviously the goal of the county is to negotiate. We've been trying to work on a straight interlocal agreement, obviously trying to do it from the standpoint of getting the contiguity back to the park and negotiating a straight interlocal agreement. The county has been pressing towards a ISBA form of agreement, which would allow non-contiguous annexations. Some considerations on that is obviously with the contiguous annexation method, considerable time and effort has been spent to present opinions that our proposed contiguous annexation does not meet the statutory requirement. So we are then going into a process by looking at it from that standpoint that we're negotiating an agreement for a contiguous annexation that has been opined to be illegal. So why are we negotiating something when numerous people can challenge? And we dispute the claim that unincorporated residents cannot sue to challenge the annexation. Mr. Schroff has opined that they do have standing to file litigation. The other issue is in terms of trying to negotiate specific land use densities, uses, and other land development regulations. Florida law prohibits contract zoning. So we are negotiating an agreement that Florida law strictly prohibits. Now, I spoke with another attorney this week who says, and Mr. Schroff agrees from the one opinion, that if the landowner would agree to put specific regulations, and that's why if you looked at the draft agreement that we sent the county, it had that we would encourage the developer to put specific densities as deed restrictions on their property, then we could negotiate that. But we can't, by Florida law, negotiate specific land uses, densities, and things under law. So we're going into a negotiating on specific things that the law prohibits us from doing. The other point is if we go into the negotiation under the ISBA provision, obviously the negotiations at this point would be limited to the 3 proposed properties that have been applied for annexations. If we agree to that under that ISBA provision, what that creates is a scenario, unless we create typical contiguity moving forward in the future annexations contiguous to any of those 3 properties would require going back to the county and renegotiating an expansion of that ISBA. And those are the considerations in terms of moving forward with the negotiation side. Obviously, we were all at the meeting, the county commission meeting. The state has told the county that their property dedication to the Taylor Foundation violated the statutory provisions of their grant. One being they didn't give proper notification, 2 being that they did not give it to a qualifying organization. We have documentation that we know right now that the county is proceeding to try to find a new not-for-profit to deed this to. They're proceeding to try and get a direct dedication from the Taylor Foundation to the Friends of the Wekiva not-for-profit group in order to obviously break the contiguity that we previously had. An option obviously would be legal options to challenge the legality of the deed that was transferred to the Taylor Foundation, have a court overturn the legality of that, and then obviously we could act, as Mr. Schroff said at the county commission meeting, we could conduct our lawful public hearing and make a determination based on the facts presented whether or not it's legal or whether or not we wish to annex those properties into the city. Did I miss anything?
No, sir.
Karen, I'll start with you. Questions, concerns?
I think we're proceeding on a path.
Emily?
I agree.
Nan?
How much is the negotiator going to cost?
The proposal is $450 an hour. The first meeting will probably be about a 5-hour exercise. So we're, looking at $3,000 for the first meeting.
Is there anybody in this audience that's from the landowner, not the landowners that are trying to make this happen? Anybody here?
Yes.
Tim?
I fill out a card to speak.
Were you going to allow public comment on this, Mayor?
Really, I'd rather not.
Okay.
I did reach out to the Browns. They are out of town, but they obviously expressed the support of the city to try to allow to have their property annexed.
Actually, if there are notes you want me to read.
Are you speaking on behalf of the Browns,
Yes.
Tim? Come on up. Thank you.
I'm reading straight from his text to me, his
All right.
email to me. This is from Jerry Brown, Five Lakes Capital Corp. So the owners are two brothers, are both out of town and engaged in either, otherwise they would be here, Tommy and Jerry. Owners have business in Eustis for over 60 years, significant community involvement and charity. Founder of Lake Eustis Community Foundation, instrumental in donation of community development further of former hospital site. Kids graduated from Eustis High School, have owned a portion of their property since the early 1960s. Have no development plans or agreements to develop, just want to be allow the city to plan for one day. They have a history that validates what is being good for the community. And he says he thinks by their ownership of this property that they have earned the right to ask to be a part of the city of Eustis. Just when you're negotiating, that's what he wanted read.
Thank you, Tim. Anything else, ma'am?
Anybody from the Harper camp? How much money do we want to spend on this?
In terms of negotiations or in terms of litigation?
Well, all the above.
Okay.
Aren't they in a current lawsuit?
The Harpers have a pending litigation against the county. And one of the options presented to you by Mr. Schropp that we could join that litigation in terms of as a co-litigant.
Make no mistake, I know Jerry Brown. He's been Tim, this is no disrespect to the Brown family by any stretch. I know they're very big supporters of Eustis. I mean, I'm not arguing that one bit. But I just have to ask myself, am I willing to spend, if everybody wants to do the lawsuit, or if that was part of it, am I willing to spend City of Eustis taxpayer dollars on something they may or may not ever benefit from? Or I just see a rabbit hole is what I see.
So are you proposing that we not mediate or
Well,
litigate?
It appears to be the mediation is strictly for this, correct?
Is strictly, what do you mean for the?
For the Thrill Hill piece.
For the what?
For the Thrill Hill piece.
For the 3 property annexations, correct.
Yeah.
Obviously, it does have longer range effects, because if we were to prevail, in terms of the contiguity, and that we could maintain the contiguity, obviously, we could, at our own discretion and at the request of landowners, continue to annex properties under the laws of Florida, under the normal annexation procedures. Right now, we will be, if we don't proceed further, obviously, we have no real opportunities to either go out and annex into these areas east of Eustis right now. We've been working on this for a year and a half to do that. So to give up now essentially forgoes any future growth out east for the immediate future.
For me, I guess I just can't outthink if, maybe they win their lawsuit and then come back. If that's what they prevail.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out there.
Willie?
I think we owe it to the residents, out in the area that are fighting this, and we owe it to the city. If we prevail, they have no say-so. If they prevail, we have very little say-so. There has to be that happy medium, and I think that we have to sit down and we have to try and mediate this.
I guess the question is, what type of agreement can we reach if we can't by law negotiate land use issues.
I don't know, but it's got to be closer to where we are now. We've got to come up with something.
May I say something?
Please.
Could we come up with another land use, like 3-to-1? I mean, we've got, what, 1-to-1, then 5-to-1?
Well, the issue with our form-based code is that if we do a 3-to-1 with the land development classification, and then we put in a design district classification, then you're minimizing, because right now the one that we have is basically 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Up to 5.
Yeah.
And the design district classifications that are put in place minimizes that 5, in this case, down to 3. So if we were to do a class with a max of 3, and then we put in design district classification, then that minimizes it down to 1.5 or 2. I think we've all agreed that in order to provide cost-effective urban services, we need at least 3 units per acre. And that's why our proposal to the county indicated that.
And I know what you're saying. I'm familiar with that. I didn't know if maybe a different land use designation could go along with that 3-to-1. That's something that we control.
Well, we would control it now. That's what I'm saying. We could, by the design district criteria and the land classification we have, get it down to 3 units per acre just by the mere fact of the regulations we have in place. So we all understand that, and I think we all understood that from the process. We kept hearing 5-to-1, 800 homes, and we kept telling people that's not how it's going to turn out.
I know that, and you know that, and that's why I brought that up.
Correct.
But by the time you get open space and by the time, the
I agree.
transportation, yeah. But by the time the transportation is looked at, school districts are looked at, it all comes together at the end. So I would like to see us move forward with negotiations.
I guess the question is, though, if we're legally prohibited from the only thing we could legally do would be a proposal to create a specific land district classification for this area, and then you get into what's called spot zoning. And so there are many legal issues related. It's not an easy fix.
You just can't do I understand the concept.
Correct. So it comes down to the concept of, obviously this is a transitioning area, and we've had transitioning areas in the past where higher density new developments have gone into places where there had been historical lower density developments, and over time they transition to the urban uses. So the issue is short of redoing our entire land development classifications and spot zoning this, which has legal ramifications, our hands are really tied. The question is does this body have the concern enough and the understanding enough to make good decisions in the area that we're going and what we need to do? We understand that there's conflict. There will always be conflict with new development. We've seen it for the last 2 years. The question is, what do we do moving forward? Obviously, we all recognize the fact that we need to increase our tax base. And frankly, the eastern area, other than filling in enclaves, which are very minimal to what we can do on many of those, is going to restrict our ability to grow. And it's been the policy of the Eustis Commission throughout the last several years to seek growth and development to expand our tax base. We're just in a situation now that it's not an easy fix.
And when are they supposed to hear something from the state?
If you want to give an update on that?
Yes, Commissioner. I spoke to the Department of Environmental Protection today, the General Counsel's office, Lois LeSueur, and they said they've received all the information from both sides, what we presented, what the litigants presented. You recall the letters that came back and forth, also what the county presented, and they said it's still all under review and they have not yet decided.
And here is our concern. Obviously, our issue, and there was letters sent by Mr. Schroth, there were letters sent by legal counsel for the Harpers, and there was letters sent by legal counsel of the Brown family. So they have been spending money in terms of trying to advance the efforts to get these properties annexed. Our belief is the county can't take any legal action to deed this property because they gave up the legal right to that property. And there's two issues at play here. The legality of their grant agreement, and according to the state of Florida, under the grant agreement, they illegally deeded that property to the Taylor Foundation. The problem is, under the legality of general law, the deed is valid. And the county could say, well, the deed is legally valid under the purpose of general law, and we're going to keep it that way, and our risk to us is to suffer the wrath of DEP in terms of violating the grant agreement and any penalties to do. So our position is the county, the only legal decision that the state should make and can make is that Lake County has to get that property back into their name, follow the statutory procedures of notification of 60 days, follow the procedure of giving it to a qualifying entity before it can get into their hands. And the question is, I guess it's a philosophical question of the commission. Do you feel that the Eustis City Commission should be the one dictating and determining how the city of Eustis develops in its joint planning area, which has been in place since 1987? So what we're hoping, at least from this standpoint, and obviously that's at your discretion, is that the state comes in and tells Lake County, before you do one thing, you have to get this property back in your hands. And that's one of the legal challenges that we could do, is say they did this illegally, they did it specifically not for any true conservation purposes, and the record is clear. They did it specifically to block this annexation. And is that the spirit and intent of the grant in terms of deeding property, to give it to a not-for-profit to advance conservation activities? And it's clear from the record that's not what this was. So it was very clear this was done to block your legal right to plan for the city, to conduct legal legislative processes, and for you to be trusted to make good decisions in planning for the city of Eustis.
So your proposal is we do nothing?
No, I have no proposal. I'm telling you, you have options.
Mm-hmm.
Options we can negotiate, but the problem is there's issues with negotiations that I don't think can be overcome legally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tracking right there.
So that's what I'm saying. Unless we agree to the ISBA, we can get around the issue of the illegal annexation. But we still have the issue of the contract zoning that we legally can't get around. So how can we negotiate a contract for densities that we can't legally do? So then the negotiations will go to a point, well, okay, Eustis, you now need to go, you need to do this, and then we'll spend a year and a half redeveloping our land development regulations to try and accommodate the terms of this one agreement for 3 pieces of property, which gets us into a spot zoning circumstances. So, and then we're back in a situation that if we agree to this and we can make it legal, then anytime anybody wants to connect to these other pieces of property, we then have to go back to Lake County and ask for permission each time we do it. And tell me what other municipality in Lake County is having to do that. The issue from a litigation standpoint is, hopefully we can convince a judge to declare that Lake County acted in bad faith, that the deed was invalid. Then we can act and do the things that you were elected to decide in terms of the destiny of the city. your legal right to legislate for the city of Eustis to legally act upon applications submitted by residents of Eustis and Lake County.
What happens if we get the response back from the state saying they did it wrong?
Well, they've already said they've done it wrong.
They've done it wrong, and they're not going to let them do it again.
Correct. What would
Where are we
happen?
then?
Well, the county has a choice. They could say, fine, Florida, we violated it, and but we're going to keep it in the Taylor Trust, and we'll suffer the penalties under the provisions of the grant agreement. The state could come back and say, you have to, before you can make an application to give it to the new Friends of the Wekiva Group, you have to have the property back in your name. Because they have no legal standing in terms of a matter of law, not the grant agreement. The state has told them they have to you have to tell us how you're going to correct the error that you committed. And my belief is the very first thing on the list that needs to be done before they can correct their error is to get correct with the law, and that is to have the property back in their name. Am I on track?
And to answer your question, I mean, that's the difficulty with bringing a suit right now is DEP could at any moment say, okay, county, you did wrong, but you can make it right by doing X, Y, Z, and they do it. The flip side could be true too. They say you did wrong and you need to rescind it, and then we're in a position of the timing issue. So if the county decided to get the deed back, then we would have to act quickly. If not, Lake County could find someone in theory to deed it to in compliance, and we're in the same position we're in now, but having gone through a lawsuit.
But we believe that the requirements of the grant requires 60-day notification to the state for permission to do that. We don't know what the state's latitude in terms of waiving those requirements. At this point, I believe they're statutory, and while DEP has the authority to administer them, I think they have to administer them within the confines of what the statute allows and requires. So the state may come and say, yeah, you can deed it to the Friends of the Wekiva Group, but first you have to have it back in your name. Now you have to give us, you can send in your request, and you have to give us the 60 days notice. That gives us the window to exercise our ordinances and allow you guys to make the decisions whether or not to annex and move forward under the provisions of the agreement, of our codes.
I have a question. We were discussing whether or not we were going to negotiate. We've gone way over here, so are you saying to negotiate or not to negotiate? And if we do, what's going to be the ultimate result?
I'm giving you all the options. I think negotiations, I don't think gets us anything in the near term. So based on the processes and the restrictions and the limitations, negotiations are going to be a long, drawn-out process. And expensive.
So we don't negotiate, we just let everything play out in the courts with the...
Well, that's on the premise that the Harpers continue with their suit. If the Harpers say, you know what, it's not worth us, we're not going to file suit, it's a moot point unless we want to proceed with the suit so that we can exercise our rights as a legislative body, because we were robbed of that right by the county's actions.
That's what concerns me. How do we proceed to do the things we want to do if we are in this confines of the only ones who have to report to the county? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And I understand what you're saying, but then how do we move forward to better that relationship with the county if we don't negotiate? If we don't try and have that conversation? It's a tough call.
Let me tell you kind of where I am with the whole thing. We need to have the joint meeting with the county. not meeting is a bigger problem. There's more to talk about than Thrill Hill, and I'm sick to death of talking about Thrill Hill. We're not getting anything done in the city of Eustis because all we're concentrating on is Thrill Hill. The agenda since January has been nothing but Thrill Hill. There's the enclaves. There's other things we can talk about with the county commission board. We need to sit down with them. Do we need a mediator at the first meeting? I'm not sure we do. I think we need to find out what we all want to talk about. Then maybe bring in a mediator later. There's other things we could do. You know, the Thrill Hill annexation to me is not all about money. It's us losing our rights as a board, and it's our rights as the state legislature keeps playing with us being able to make our own home rule problems here. Lake County's doing the same thing the state legislature's trying to do. They're playing with home rule, and that's the way I look at it. However, failure on our part not to sit down with the county commission is a failure for the city of Eustis moving forward. So we need to sit down. I don't think we need a mediator at the first one. We need to set priorities and parameters on the first one. And the conversation cannot be solely on Thrill Hill. It's got to be on where we need to go as a city moving forward and how we can work with that county commission to do it. When it comes to lawsuits, I'm not willing to spend another red dime of city taxpayer money on lawsuits. I'm done with it. Because the gamble we take is we're going to be taking our taxpayer money, and if we lose, look at what we've lost. And if we win, what did we really win? You know? Truthfully, I think that the property owners out there are going to have to fight this fight. We'll be behind them. But I just don't see us spending a lot of money right up front right now. Karen, you and I have sat here since 2009 dealing, and we've dealt with our share of lawsuits, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and watched it go. What could we have done if we'd have had that money back in our coffers over the years? You know? Do I want that annexation done? Yeah. Do I think we have the legal rights to do that annexation? Yes, I do. I think the blockage that was done is wrong. I think the state has said that. I think that needs to play out on its own. I think the state will play that out for us. But right now, I think we need to move forward with the negotiations on March 31st, sit down with the county, set some priorities and parameters of what we want to talk about as a commission with them, and move forward. Just where I am at this point. We have got to move forward. We have got to start cleaning up our enclaves. We can bring in a lot of tax revenue by cleaning up our enclaves here in Eustis. If you look at a city map, it's unbelievable. If you haven't gotten one, look at the city map and look at the enclaves we have. And they're in areas where you just don't expect them to be. But that's my 2 cents, and I know I've talked a lot about that. Sorry about that. So, Karen, what do you think we should do at this time?
We've been working, is it the ISBO we've been working on for how many years? Or was it the,
5.5 years we started on an ISBA.
on an ISBO?
Yep.
5.5 years, we've been staff time, our time, county time, and can't get a straight answer. And then we watch the county maneuver illegally. We're out in the open. And they talk about not trusting us. I am so disappointed in what our county has done and how they continue to treat us. Do we have the right? Absolutely. Do we have the right? But we don't have the support of our county to help us do what needs to, or maybe not need to be done, what could be done. Because honestly, when the Wekiva Parkway opened up, that opened up go through Sorrento now, you go through Mount Dora on the other end. I don't want it at all to look like that. I think they've ruined most of that. But we can't control it unless we annex it in. And we can't protect it unless we annex it in. So I agree that we need to have discussion with the county, but how many discussions have we had, guys? And you guys haven't been able to be in some of those, that end up, all I remember is leaving every one of those meetings exhausted with nothing accomplished. So I don't know how you go to one of those, how you go to something like that without a facilitator or a mediator to keep people on track.
Anything else? Nan, what do you want us to do?
I like the idea of the meeting without the mediator, because I feel, like you said, Karen, it's been 5 years, and I think it's been a long time coming. I think the first meeting needs to really, everyone's just going to have to sit down, say what they have to say, and then I think we'd be able to move on. You know, there's been emotion, been played up into this. It's been a long time coming, apparently, five plus years. I think that everyone needs to lay it out, get everything off your chest, get it out of the open, and then we can sit down and talk. Okay? I'm not interested in spending money on a lawsuit. I'm just not, to spend taxpayer dollars on that. They have a current lawsuit, you know, let them play it out. Let them play it out. They have an attorney. I mean, if their attorney can't win it, how can we? Do I agree that what was done? Yeah, it was wrong. I think it was a lot of government overreach. But I see we're talking a couple separate issues here. Okay? That state thing, the state's going to do what they want to do. And Derek, you're right. I mean, they could come back at any time. They're going to do what they want to do. You know? So how much money do we spend? I remember I wasn't on the commission, but the lawsuit over the fire station, it was a lot of money that could have been spent on something else. So I would like to see us in a meeting, but I don't think we need a mediator. I think that's maybe down the road to see how that first meeting goes. And like I said, I'm not interested in a lawsuit. I'm not.
Willie?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should move forward with the mediation. And I hadn't given any thought to not having a mediator there until you brought it up. But I agree. I think at the initial meeting, I think it would be a waste of money. I think that there's a lot of things that we need to talk about. You know, a lot of feelings that have been hurt, you know, and I honestly think that, you know, and you all have heard me say this, you know, we put on our big boy pants and we look each other in the eye and, you know, and we have the conversations that we need to have. I think it's kind of hard for people to continuously lead you down the wrong path if they're looking you in the eye, so.
Vice Mayor?
I agree that we should meet and negotiate. I believe that we're going to have to be adults, and we don't need a mediator to tell us how to do that. And we should go in there to talk about our concerns, and I agree with you. I'm tired of 3 of you myself. And so it's important that we do this one more time. I did not enjoy the last one that we had, but it's going to have to be different this time, and I think that we all are going to have to own up to that difference and negotiate in good faith, get all of the vindictiveness and the ugliness out of it, and just come to terms with who we are and where we're trying to go. But I think it's important for us to have the meeting so that it doesn't appear that we're not willing to negotiate. It's on us, and that we have to have some skin in the game also. So yes, I think we should go ahead with that. And I agree that when I think about what he just said, the cost per hour for a negotiator, I could do it half price, you know. So that concerns me, and I think we should, in good faith, go forth and do what needs to be done.
Could I ask each commissioner to send Ron an email or to get with Ron, tell him some things that you would like to talk about, during this meeting on the 31st. That way we have a little bit of an agenda of what we would like to see and talk about.
Do you think the county would be in agreement not to have?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. They gave consensus to go forward with a mediator. And you're giving consensus to go forward without one, so.
I can reach out to Mr. Rosen tomorrow.
Did you do that?
What I would suggest, though, is as part of the mediation proposal, they wanted the mediator to meet with representatives of each party to establish the parameters of negotiations. If we're not going to have the mediator, are you comfortable, obviously, with your input to me? And obviously, if the county agrees to do it without the mediator, Mr. Rosen and I working out the agenda of topics for discussion? Okay, I'll be in touch with them in the morning.
So much. Got enough? Is that okay? All right. Thank you. All right. Coming down now to future agenda items. Karen, anything for a future agenda? Madam Vice Mayor?
Well, I had asked about the strategic plan. I had a family event that I went to, but I've changed that, and I did talk to Ron about it. And I'm available, but I don't know.
I'll be requesting that here under my report to discuss that.
Okay. Anything else? Susan?
That's it.
Willie? Nan?
No, sir.
Okay. The only one thing I wanted to ask about, Ron, where are we with the fire assessment fee study that we were doing?
We've signed the agreement. She's working through the data collection process right now.
How long does that usually take?
Obviously, report will be back. Is Mike here? Shepard here. July.
Both mics.
Shepard.
We're getting the information to her. I'm guessing it's going to be April, May.
To get the final report and recommendations.
And you get the whatever recommendations.
Okay, so April or May, we'll have a report and recommendations, and then there's a legal process that we go through June, July, and then an ultimate decision would be in August.
Because I'm still having trouble with it, trying to deal with taxation again. So just putting it out there. So I see you grinning down there at the end. So I just think our people are taxed heavily as it is, and I'm just having trouble with it in my own mind. So
that's right.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And we are allowed to stop that at any time, and it's a prorated amount, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Is that what you're suggesting?
No, that's part of the process. You can stop it at any time.
That's what I'm asking. Are you trying to stop it now?
I think because it's not on an agenda and given the situation, maybe, before you decide or.
Would you put it on the next agenda
Yes.
for me? Let's discuss it again. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. That's all I've got on that part. Sorry.
No, that's right.
Reports. Nan, anything to report from over the last 2 weeks?
Yes, I do. I just want to say thank you to Rick very much for working with the sheriff's office, with Ray, allowing him to use the parking lot over at Carver Park. They were able to, refurbish the SRO's vehicles, and I appreciate that very much. And thank you very much, Ron, for allowing that as well. So I appreciate that. And I spoke to B.E. Thompson right before the meeting, and he had indicated that Joe Zeiler from Kevco Construction reached out to him about the dog park, and he said that he would like to see a nicer sign and some of the banners replaced, and he said he would do that at his cost.
And he cleared that through BE?
Yes, BE
Okay.
called me, and so if you would reach out to BE,
Yeah.
that would be great. So Joe, he didn't say it looked bad, but he just kind of said it looked a little temporary and the banners were looking a little forlorn.
No, that's
So
fine.
he said he would do that at his expense, which I thought was pretty nice. And I just actually had one other question for Rick. I know we had talked, it's been a while back, about that kayak launch over and where are we with that?
Come on up, Rick.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we did, we're under contract with somebody to clean out the vegetation in that area. which has been a huge help. And we've got our permit through Fish and Game, so we're able to do that. I am putting in for our budget, we're starting our capital process to put in for a much more, can't say elaborate, but
Substantial?
Substantial.
A little
thank you.
better.
Substantial kayak launch.
Okay.
So, which would be some piles and some structure
Okay.
and something a little more permanent.
As we spoke, we were going to try and use those floating docks. We couldn't find an apparatus that worked. So
Okay, because I know you were looking into it, so
Right, we did
I
that.
just
We
didn't
also
know.
looked off of going off the long dock
That's-
closest.
Yeah.
And with the people that are fishing there, and then you're carrying a kayak, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
So we're coming up with.
Okay,
a
I
much
just wondered
more
where we were.
permanent- Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
working on it. We're putting it into our capital.
Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Rick. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Karen, anything to report?
The only thing I want to report is, I think many of you know, I volunteer with a group called Leash. And last weekend, we had representatives in 3 locations, Pine Rakes, Paisley, and Groveland. And we gave out 140 certificates for people to get their dogs fixed, spayed or neutered. That's about between $12,000 and $14,000 that we gave out over the weekend. And we're doing it again this Saturday in Leesburg. So I think we're really helping. People came from all over, and hopefully it will help reduce the number of dogs running the streets. So it was
Anything
good.
else? Willie?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone, especially the commissioners that came out and helped with the cleanup with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We were out for about 3 or 4 hours, and we cleaned up quite a bit. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out and helping with that.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I agree. I want to compliment our commission. I think we're outstanding because when there are things going on in the community, we're there. I mean, we're giving up our time, we're being there, and we're supportive. And the community in turn is supporting us, and I appreciate that very much. So, thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you so much. Mr. Manager?
2 things. One, we have the final interview tomorrow with our 3 chief of police finalists. So I've been pleased with the quality of the first 2 candidates. I'm excited about meeting the 3rd candidate tomorrow. Hopefully, over the next several days, early next week, I'll be making a decision, and I will let you know as soon as that's done and see how that works out. For those of you that may be aware that the federal government approved the America Recovery Act, the city of Eustis's allocation, and hold your saliva, please, $8.95 million for the city of Eustis. I mentioned it to the staff, and they immediately started lurching forward. We're getting $8.95 million. However, we don't know what restrictions and uses are on that money. That will be developed, and as soon as we get that information, we'll let you know. So hold those salivary
I've been
glands.
following that real closely.
Hold those salivary glands in place, but we're very excited about the possibilities that the money could allow us to do. So that's all I have.
Mr. Attorney?
Nothing, sir.
Thank you so much.
Strategic plan.
Ma'am?
You said you were going to say
Strategic plan.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, we had some conflicts. Obviously, I know there's interest in doing the strategic plan. I still have staff putting together reports for me. Let me make this suggestion. I know the strategic plan's important, but obviously we discussed the issue of greater equal importance in terms of our annexation policies and relationships with the county. If you would maybe want to put a 3-month hold on that while we focus it's up to you. I mean,
I was going to say, I still had it on the 25th. I was just shocked for 3 months.
no, the 25th was,
Yeah, that's a long time. I'm still good for the 25th.
of March. Well, Emily had her thing and she worked through that, but before she told me she could do it, I extended the staff deadline. So could we do it maybe in the second Thursday in April, the 8th? I think you had, that's the fair.
That's opening day of the
Yeah,
fair.
so the 4th Thursday in April?
The fourth Thursday?
29th?
22nd.
22nd.
Second.
I'm available.
I'm not. Well, no, I'm not.
How about me?
What about the 29th?
29th, yeah?
29th, I'm good.
That's the Trails Forum is in the morning.
Yeah, I saw Trails update, but that's it. Oh, no, it's 5:30.
It's at 5:30 in the
No,
afternoon.
never mind.
Do we have to do a Thursday, and do we have to do an evening?
Well, I know Karen works.
What about the 21st?
21st is...
I'm not.
20th?
14th, I'm good.
14th,
April 14th?
I'm good. Since there's no tax day on the 15th.
Well, they've extended tax day
No,
now.
it's
so
Right, so I'm good.
Right, May 17th.
May 17th, yeah.
What time? 5:30?
5 o'clock?
What's,
Can you
you
get here
work,
at 5,
so.
Karen?
I could do 5.
Can you do
5?
5? Okay.
Let's do 5.
I'm
Okay.
good.
14th.
On the 14th.
Okay.
Strategic.
I don't want to, you know, I mean, Willie's already complaining about bait and switch, that he was told this was 2 meetings a month, so.
Exactly.
That's what they keep saying.
All right, 5 PM on April the
5 o'clock,
14th.
okay.
Everybody good? All right. I want to thank everybody for staying with us tonight. Again, thank this commission and for all that you do out in the community. I know we've been out doing a lot together, and I think it helps our community really understand that we're here to serve them and to work hard for them. City staff always does a tremendous job, and thank you for all that you all do. Just a tremendous job. I also want to give our condolences to the Hayes family. Mr. Hayes passed away a couple weeks ago, and 4 of us got to attend his funeral on Sunday. And it was really an interesting funeral, a beautiful funeral for a man that family, not only do they own the funeral home here in Eustis, but just a long list of educators and the way they've touched this community over the years. It's been quite unreal to watch the things that they've done. So just if you get a chance, drop them a line, tell them you're thinking about them. Mr. Hayes was going to be, 97?
97.
And I was still getting phone calls from Mr. Hayes every couple weeks to check on me, just to make sure that I was okay and things like that. So just shows the type person he was, even at 97 years old. And the neat part about it is every part of that family is the same way, right on down to the grandkids. So just good people. Couple things. This weekend, Saturday, is a community garage sale, yard sale at the community center. At the Chamber of Commerce. That starts at what time, Steph? 9 o'clock in the morning. And then we also have a community fun day out at Bates Avenue at Carver Park, and that's with the city and Parks and Recreation. That's going to be a great time. Next weekend is Buskers Festival in our downtown corridor, which if you've not been to the Buskers Festival, they're street performers from all across the country that come and perform in our downtown. And then at the end of the day, there'll be a big show of the finalists and the band shell. It's really a great time. I encourage you to come out and be with us for that. So that's all I've got for this evening. Thanks for staying with us, and we're adjourned.